In a shocking move, Airbnb is leaving the Dominican Republic, and they're going out with a bang. Look at this portion of a message that hosts are getting, saying you can no longer access your account and cannot create a new one. You also cannot be a host, guest, or co-traveler on Airbnb. All upcoming reservations will be canceled. Please be aware that this removal will apply to any future duplicate accounts if you attempt to circumvent this decision. Holy crap. This is sending shockwaves throughout the country, including messages like this one, where people are asking what the heck is going on. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly what happened, why it's happening, but also the impact on tourism and real estate as a result, and much more. Let's dive in. So Airbnb is banning hosts that are tied to sex tourism, like permanent bans, no new bookings, just like you saw. In fact, here's the rest of that message that I shared at the beginning. This is Andrea with the Airbnb team. As you may know, our policies prohibit sex work in listings offered on Airbnb. This includes sex tourism. After an investigation, which included a review of the following listing or listings and your account, we've decided to remove you from the Airbnb community for violating these policies. And this specific listing is a guest-friendly chef service, books 8 to 14 rooms. What I'm hearing is terms like guest-friendly, chica-friendly are the things that are getting people banned, and they're getting that notice sent to them directly. That's an actual email from Airbnb to a host. And the crackdown that you're seeing is happening really in one concentrated area within the Dominican Republic, which is Sosua, widely known historically for sex tourism. So because of all that's happened in one little concentrated area, it's fueled the speculation that Airbnb is simply leaving the Dominican Republic, or maybe even more, Airbnb is leaving the North Shore. The answer is not really to either of those, but they're leaving behind anyone they perceive to be in the sex tourism industry, or catering to passport bros and hoes. You know? What's interesting too is I'll see some accounts on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube of guys that seem to be saying, hey, this is a terrible move, you don't understand. They're sort of glorifying the good old days of sex tourism in Sosua, and I'm not so sure that's gonna fly. And here's why. The government recently launched something called Operation Atlántico, and the most visible part of that was in July of 2025 when there were massive raids taking out many in the sex tourism industry, prostitutes, pimps, passport bros, anybody associated, in what was a major coordinated effort by the national police and the military. Not being up in that area, I watched, like many of you, from the sidelines while other creators up there documented exactly what was happening. The entire thing is a rebrand on Sosua. They want to go from being sort of the sex tourism hub to more of a family-friendly environment. And look, if you've watched my channel for some time, you know I've talked about the DR going up market, meaning more luxury. Now, luxury doesn't necessarily mean like opulent, multi-million-dollar properties, but luxury includes like family-friendly amenities. And you can see what's happening there right now. Look, the Hard Rock just built a facility in Sosua. Right up the road in Rio San Juan, Alex Rodriguez is bringing $1 billion worth of investment with he and his partners to develop the Playa Grande area. And Sosua sits on some beautiful beaches like Playa Alicia and much more, sitting right between Cabarete and Puerto Plata. In conjunction with these raids, the president and the minister of tourism visited to share the future of what they see Sosua being. They really want to shed this sex tourism branding once and for all. Now, it's my understanding there have been raids in the past. I listened to a lot of creators talk about things like in 2019 perhaps and before, but every one of them that I listened to say this time it feels a little different. And this is where I'll speculate a bit. If you're going to have major investment in that area, both privately and publicly, the last thing you can allow is for one of the few beach towns in a small country to be taken over by this sort of element. If anything, if prostitution is still legal and it's pushed more to the center of the country where there's not a ton of tourism or international investment, maybe fine. I don't want it anywhere, I just don't like it, but hey, whatever. But it feels like if there is a time where this industry is gone once and for all from Sosua, this might be it. Keeping in mind, that's not my area. I don't live there, I don't frequent it. I'm just listening to what people, even the most skeptical types, who thinks any government action is all theater, even they're saying, no, I'm seeing cops being swapped out, reassigned, and there's a feeling that there's a real push to eradicate this forever. In short, Operation Atlántico is a campaign to restore order, curb trafficking, which is the sad part about all of that sex tourism industry, and rebrand Sosua as a family-friendly place. So what about tourism and real estate? There are many business owners who tailor to this industry. Even if it's with a legitimate front, they're very welcoming of the types of people that travel down to do the types of thing that they're gonna do. And if I'm them, I'm sounding alarm bells. The reality is they're at risk with their business, whether they own Airbnb, hotel, bars, restaurants. But the way it sounds, how you identify the folks impacted, is they're lamenting how this is going to absolutely clean out Sosua and to show you right now, like, look, there's nobody here already. In other words, without the passport bro, Sosua has no future. Now, I'll be honest, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. However, in the short term, yeah, I think tourism is going to be impacted because that's a sector. It's an actual industry. Passport bros coming down, that's a type of tourist. And if they're not able to come down anymore, or if they're not going to frequent that area, then sure, businesses in that element, in that spot, will absolutely be affected by that. What that also means is potentially an increase in supply. If I own some Airbnbs that were tailoring to las chicas, as they say, which is such a, it's like a nice term for something so sad, but whatever. If I own those properties, I'm going to be listing them because there's no purpose in owning something down there anymore unless you're marketed in a different way beyond Airbnb. And you can be VRBO, Facebook ads, but let's be honest, Airbnb is the granddaddy. You lose that, you're going to struggle for a while. So I could see where an increase in supply in Sosua, maybe a fire sale of property, creates a downward trajectory on the surrounding area with real estate in the short term. But like anything, time heals all wounds. And over time, I think you'll see Sosua, with the right investment and the right push, actually experience more of a boom. I mean, look, if you're somebody looking to come down here or move down here and live down here, you may say, I love the North Shore, but that whole element just makes it so unattractive for me to have friends and family visit or live with me. So you come to Punta Cana and you spend more money. Well, if Sosua is not a black mark on that entire North Shore anymore, in time it becomes much more family friendly, kind of goes more Sosua Ocean Village, more Cabarete, less Sosua, then you'll absolutely see a rebound in prices in time. Many people up there that are in this industry that seem legitimate on the surface are going to warn you against that, going to say, this just killed Sosua forever. And that, I mean, let's just think about this. It is Caribbean beachfront property surrounded by highly desired Caribbean beachfront property. Do you really think that there's not a market for people wanting to travel to a Caribbean beach? Really? Always has been, always will be. So those alarming you that this is the end of Sosua, like, it's going to cause a dip in Sosua, but it's like anything. Sometimes you got to take 2 steps back to go 3 steps forward. Now, talking to some friends there and hosts that I know up in the Sosua Cabarete area, they're celebrating this, even if it's quietly. The ones that are loud are the ones that are feeling like, oh, this is going to clear out the area. This is so stupid. The government's overdoing it, yada, 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 because their business depends on sex tourism. But the hosts who want the families, the hosts that want people coming in to do legitimate things and have a great time, to go check out the new Hard Rack, to do all these new things there, they're actually not only loving it, but I'm told they're doing pretty well right now. I've been saying on this channel for some time that the moves the Dominican Republic is making is to go up market, more luxury, higher end, higher scale. Punta Cana, for instance, doesn't want to be known anymore for just a bunch of inexpensive all-inclusives. It wants to be a premier destination. Alex Rodriguez in Rio San Juan, he doesn't want a budget accommodation for people coming down. He wants a premier destination. Las Terrenas is going in that direction. Miches has the Four Seasons and other high-end establishments coming in. It's an economic reality that those with means are more recession proof. They're more resistant to the ups and downs of the economy. In many ways, you're at your own peril if all of your business is tailored toward the mid to lower tier income brackets. In my world, there's this adage that somebody who's paying $500 for your services wants to know how that service is going to change their life, and they'll wear you down to make sure every dollar is reasonably spent in their mind. And the guy spending 50 grand just cuts the check. Boy, I've seen that time and time and time again. This is becoming a topic of discussion in the DR Inner Circle, which is a community that I launched for those investing, moving to, or interested in the Dominican Republic. We do weekly live Q&A, monthly expert calls. We have a really great bustling Facebook community for friends to answer other friends' questions. If you're interested, join below. It's $9 a month. Cancel anytime. You can join our 300+ members in an incredible community. Oh, and by the way, half of you watching this aren't subscribed. Would really love for you to hit that button. It really helps to grow the channel. Look, I'll say this. I'm sure there are some hosts who have gotten caught up in this kind of crackdown that weren't actually tailoring to that industry, and I feel for them. I really do. I hope there's an appeals process, and I hope they can get their appeal heard. But at the same time, I'm sure most of what happened with Airbnb is legitimate. And as I talk about in this market all the time, corrections and dips will happen, but over the long term, in almost every real estate market, things get better. And this, to me, is step 1 towards Sosua becoming something really, really big in the next 5 to 10 years. That's what I say. What do you think? Drop a comment down below, and then check out this video. I actually toured Sosua, walked around and did a whole review specifically around its family friendliness. You can check that out here, and I'll see you on the next one.